Aion 2 is shaping up to be huge, but it also might end up being another pay-to-win disaster. And after the third livestream, I'm honestly a bit torn. On one hand, the game looks ambitious, huge zones with gorgeous environments, challenging PvE content, top-tier customization, the ability to turn almost any mob into a mount, as well as dynamic action combat system that draws some inspiration from the original game. On the other hand, we've got time-gated PvP zones, mobile gameplay that doesn't look great, and a questionable monetization model that looks like every well-sweat dream. So, in this video, I'm breaking it all down, the good, the bad, and the ugly sides of Aion 2, as well as trying to answer the question, can it become the MMO we've all been waiting for, or will it end up being just another dead game in NCSoft's portfolio? Without any further ado, let's just jump straight into it. The third livestream was able to provide us with additional insights into what Aion 2's content and progression will look like. On release, the level cap will be set at 45, with hardcore players being able to reach maximum level within a day, while casual players will need around 3 to 4 days to get there. In some of my previous videos, I expressed concerns about leveling being too fast, since that would diminish the sense of exploring Atrea's vast and beautiful world and make lower level zones obsolete pretty quickly. However, NCSoft mentioned that mobs will scale alongside players, meaning even at max levels, you'll still see people roaming around low-level zones, looking for hidden dungeons, farming mobs for materials, or hunting for rare achievements. It's a great way of extending the life of the world and making it feel more alive beyond the first weeks after release. NCSoft also stated that dungeons will have boosted rates for gear and kina, the in-game currency, making progression feel more rewarding. To combat botting though, they said kina gained from open-world mobs will be reduced, which is another way of NCSoft trying to protect the game's economy. More on that subject later in the video. But if getting gear and resources is being made to sound easier, what will the endgame grind actually look like? Will it be meaningful and still feel rewarding a few months after release? One thing to keep in mind is that gear obtained from dungeons in Aion 2 will have randomized stats. That means part of the endgame grind may just be running dungeons until you finally land the piece with the specific stats you want. NCSoft hasn't yet confirmed if stats reroll scrolls will make an appearance, but considering they've used a similar feature before, I am fairly confident they will make a comeback at some point. Regardless, Aion fans have plenty of side activities to look forward to. Collections, for example, will require you to gather specific gear pieces to feed into a codex for extra stats that give a small but useful advantage. I was also happy to see that players can turn pretty much any mob into a mount. I wonder if we'll be able to turn Mummy Cromir into a mount so we can ride. Legion Housing is also making a return in Aion 2, letting players customize their guild halls and earn trophies by defeating various bosses. A much loved feature from Aion 1 that also adds replayability to dungeons you might not otherwise need gear from. And typical of next-gen MMOs, the character customization is top tier. Not only will you be able to make almost anything you can imagine with no obvious limits on how far you can push the sliders, but the same freedom applies to outfits. You'll be able to change textures, colors, and even material types, opening up a huge range of options for the more fashion inclined. To make outfit management easier, a wardrobe feature is also included in the game. One of the biggest talking points during NCSoft's third developer livestream was Aion 2's user interface, and more specifically, what the game actually looks like when played on mobile devices. The question in everyone's mind was, if Aion 2 is supposed to be a PC-first MMO, why does the UI look so mobile-heavy? The developers explained that it was easier to build the mobile version of the interface first, and then adapt it for PC, rather than the other way around. They also reassured players that the UI is still a work in progress, with ongoing improvements planned before launch. Eventually, PC and mobile will have distinct UIs tailored for each platform. We've already seen small tweaks like colored skill icons on the hotbar, showing that changes are already in motion. Another reason for the mobile look might be that NCSoft reused assets from the original version of Aion 2, announced back in 2018. Which at the time was designed as a mobile-only game. That's also where early speculation about Aion 2 being PvE-focused came from. While PvE remains an important pillar, it's no longer the sole direction for the game. As for the mobile gameplay reveal, well, it runs, but not without issues. Frame drops were noticeable and character control looked clunky at best. On smaller screens, the game still looked decent, but the developers admitted that they recommend playing on PC for more demanding content like dungeons or PvP. Originally, they considered adding partially automated combat to help mobile players, but after testing, they scrapped that idea in favor of a fully manual gameplay. This raises a bigger problem, the gap between the PC and mobile gameplay experience. I wouldn't be surprised if many PC players refuse to group up with mobile players simply because the control disadvantages are too obvious. We've seen this kind of split before. Throne and Liberty, for example, had console players frequently excluded from parties or guilds. Even with dedicated console servers, most still gravitated to global servers due to the larger population, which only made the divide worse. Whether Aion 2 will face the same issues remains to be seen. NCSoft might introduce separate servers for mobile or find another solution. For now, we'll have to wait and see. Perhaps the most controversial reveal from the livestream was the return of the Abyss. Once the centerpiece of Aeon's faction warfare, the Abyss is now being reimagined as a time-gated zone. Players will only be able to enter the Abyss for 7 hours per week, though that limit can be extended with special items. Within the Abyss, players can engage in open-world PvP, fight bosses, and farm Abyss points, the currency required for PvP gear. Beyond that, NCSoft hasn't yet clarified what other activities will provide Abyss points. I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of time-gated content. Developers often argue that time limits help prevent burnout, but in practice they tend to do the opposite. Restricting access removes player freedom, forcing them to engage with content on specific times rather than when they want to. That pressure creates the very fatigue these systems are supposed to prevent. The way the Abyss was set up immediately reminded me of Throne and Liberty's Nebula Island, a PvP zone with a 5-hour weekly limit. What happened there was rather predictable. Hardcore players save their zone timer for boss events to maximize loot, while casual players struggle to juggle grind activities with their Nebula Island timer. Many ended up playing out of obligation, driven by fear of missing out rather than enjoyment. As for Aion 2, we know bosses will spawn in the Abyss and likely serve as a major conflict point. But beyond that, details are still scarce. Maybe it's just my bias as an Aion 1 veteran, but I'd much prefer if NCSoft scrap the timer entirely for global release. PvP in Aion 2 won't be limited to the Abyss though. The game is shaping up as a full PvPv experience, combining a wide range of dungeons and raids with competitive modes like solo and group arenas, 8 vs 8 battlegrounds, and even rifting, allowing players to invade enemy territory through portals just like in the original Aion. Importantly, these activities exist outside of progression critical zones, helping to reduce griefing. That's actually good news for casual players who just want to quest without being camped all day. From what we got to see of the PvP combat during the livestream, things look promising. Animations are flashy and fluid, though movement could use refinement. Right now, characters look like they're floating because of the mismatch between the running speed and the running animation. It was also a pleasant surprise to see auto-cancelling in the game, which raises the big question, will weaving make a return? Cancelling auto-attacks with skills for extra DPS was one of Aeon's most iconic mechanics, and we're hoping to confirm more about this through one of our testers attending the Taiwan focus group test. Of course, a 1-minute clip isn't enough to judge the full depth of PvP. We didn't see much in the way of counterplay or escape crowd control abilities. Still, the foundation looks solid. And one more important note, instant resurrection stones won't be usable in PvP. Instead, players will rely on portable resurrection points called kisks, which can also be destroyed by the enemy. It's a small but significant change that could make battles far more strategic. So far, PvP in Aion 2 looks promising. It draws inspiration from the original game, though puts its own spin on it, and for veterans of the franchise, that alone is a reason to be optimistic. Now, it's time to address the elephant in the room, and perhaps the most important part of any MMO, especially a Korean one, the monetization. Aion 2 has been confirmed as free-to-play with an optional subscription, battle passes, and a premium shop tied to a premium currency called Kuna. So what's in the shop? According to NCSoft, only the usual suspects: name and appearance change tickets, extra character slots, convenience items and consumables, additional dungeon entries, plus cosmetics like outfits, skins, wings, and pets. On top of that, the game will support player trading via an auction house that uses Kina, the regular in-game currency. Unlike Throne and Liberty or Blade and Soul New, however, trading won't be tied to a premium shop currency. Sounds reasonable, right? Well, here's where things get a bit more complicated. Players will be able to exchange Kina for Kuna and Kuna for Kina, with the exchange rate determined by the players themselves rather than a fixed rate by the developers. On one hand, this means free-to-play players can grind Kina and buy premium items without spending real money. On the other hand, it also means whales can swipe for Kuna and turn it directly into Kina to speed their progression. The silver lining is that players can only sell gear with unidentified. I gotta stiga, brat. The silver lining here is that players can only sell gear with unidentified stats. In other words, what's going up on the auction house isn't a guaranteed gear upgrade since the random stats aren't revealed yet. That means whales aren't directly buying power. Even if someone converts a mountain of cash into Kina, they're not guaranteed their best in slot item. They're just buying the chance for one. The system to exchange premium currency for in-game gold and vice versa isn't unheard of. Games like Lost Ark and Guild Wars 2 both use similar models, but inevitably raises the pay to win debate. Many players still remember Throne and Liberty, where money could fast track you into top tier gear, even if some limits existed. The mere fact that cash could shortcut your progression was enough to erode trust. In truth, most MMOs already allow this in less obvious ways than some of NCSoft's most recent game titles. Another hot topic is the so-called optional subscription. And let's be honest, NCSoft doesn't have the cleanest track record here. Aion Classic Seal Aura wasn't optional at all. It literally restricted loot and Kina farming to the point where you couldn't realistically play without paying. Throne Liberty's Da Vinci's favor, by contrast, was more about convenience. Reduced daily grinds, offered free customization, extra dungeon tokens, without giving paying users significantly more power. I am willing to assume that Aion 2's subscription will look similar to the one used in Throne and Liberty, a quality life boost rather than a mandatory paywall. To their credit, NCSoft didn't try to hide the fact that Aion 2 will be pay to win, but they presented it in a way meant to seem more acceptable to a Western audience. The question was never whether pay to win would exist, but rather how much it would impact the gameplay experience. A small ray of hope is that Aion 2 won't include gacha elements, which is quite a bold statement coming from NCSoft.
You serious?
And that PvP gear is tied directly to PvP activities, meaning you can't directly buy your way into PvP dominance. Overall, the monetization strategy looks like Throne and Liberties, with one big difference: trading runs on in-game gold and not a premium currency. Whether that's a healthier system or just a different flavor of pay to win is up for debate. Personally, it's nothing I didn't expect. I've seen worse in Aion Classic, Throne and Liberty, and Blade and so new. For me, as long as the game is fun and progression feels fair without constantly reaching for your wallet, Aion T still has a future worth keeping an eye on. So, when can we expect Aion 2 to be released? The release date is set for 19th of November. Globally? No. Only for the Korean and Taiwanese regions. Pre-download and pre-character creations will be available between 16th and 18th of November. And if you'd like to earn some Kina as well as a cool looking mount, you can pre-register today. Our friend Fellow Graphics made a pretty in-depth guide how to set up your account, so go out and check out his video. I'm gonna put the link in the description, as well as you might see a link floating somewhere around here. And for those of you looking for a global release date, well, unfortunately, NCSoft hasn't announced one yet. For all we know, it's going to be within the first half of 2026 if there are no delays. So, where do things stand after the third livestream? Well, Aion 2 is shaping up to be a big, ambitious MMO. There's no doubt about that. The world environments look absolutely gorgeous, the character customization is top tier, and the combat looks better than what I expected. Additional features like zone scaling, legion housing, and the ability to turn almost any mob into a mount are a nice touch and offer extra activities to keep players occupied. At the same time, there are some real concerns. The time gated abyss zone feels restrictive. The monetization already seems to be right on the edge of what most of us would consider acceptable, and the Kuna to Kina exchange could easily tilt progression in favor of Wells if it isn't carefully balanced. Despite the good and the bad, the biggest red flag remains NCSoft. It looks like a solid game, but knowing the company's history of changing directions halfway through a release doesn't exactly inspire confidence. On paper, Aion 2 has everything it needs to succeed, but if NCSoft leans too hard into pay to win, all of that potential could disappear overnight. This really is the defining line between Aion 2 becoming an MMO we can all enjoy, or it becoming just another pay-to-win disaster. What do you think? Is Aion 2 shaping up to be the MMO we've been all waiting for, or do you already lost all hope? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you found this breakdown useful, don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on future Aion 2 content. Thank you for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.